Today's MMA Tea Company Industry Insider is with Scott Kent. Scott is CEO and owner of Lion Fight Promotions. Lion Fight has a card coming up this Friday, May 21st. That's going to be at the Capitol Plaza Hotel in Topeka, Kansas. Scott, thanks for joining me this evening. Appreciate your time. What are you up to during fight week? What are your last minute preparations?
Well, we're working on some of our future shows today, and then we fly into Kansas tomorrow. Start working with some local media there, doing some exposure for the fight, getting ready for the weigh-in on Thursday, and then the big show on Friday night.
And you mentioned local exposure, some local media. I actually want to go back to the beginning of Lion Fight and maybe even before and find out, how you got involved in combat sports and where the idea for Lion Fight came from.
Well, I used to be in the casino business for 20 odd years, but I always trained Muay Thai during that time frame. Trained in Thailand, and really developed a love for the sport and the people, and was busy doing my own career. And then when I decided to try something different and had one of those moments where you make a decision and then you run with it. And that's essentially what I did. And we started doing some shows out in Primm, Nevada, state line between Las Vegas and California. And we tried to draw from California, Arizona, Nevada. And then we would always bring in some international talent that no one had heard of. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of the genesis of the whole Lion Fight story.
And, you're bringing in this international talent and, in their own country and in their own circles, right? They're widely recognized and known, but here in the U.S., maybe not so much. So how did you get, these international fighters to come to fight for Lion Fight, a new budding promotion in the United States?
Well, I've always been lucky to have a good matchmaker. I think it's a really important part of any promotion. Christine Toledo at that point was able, through her background as a fighter, to network with a lot of these people. And, we were looking at ways to essentially just start the machine going. How do we do this? Learning as we went. We were able to bring in a lot of these major international names, Sakman Call from Thailand and, Cosmo Alexander, these kinds of guys, to Primm, Nevada, just because I think everybody wanted to see the sport do well in the United States. And there was always kind of isolated pockets of regional Muay Thai, but nobody had really taken the bull by the horns and really tried to push it nationally and really have international representation from the United States. So I think that was our idea. That was where we tried to move forward.
And did you always, from the very beginning, you always had this vision of being, larger than just the United States, being this global brand where not only you could bring fighters into the United States, but then countries and venues would want Lion Fight in their country and in their city overseas?
Yeah, I think any kind of a business, when you start out, you don't want to start out being, with this vision that we want to be a competitor. There's in MMA, you've got the UFC and pretty much everyone else. We wanted to be the UFC of Muay Thai. And, I think you have to have that kind of attitude and you have to have that business plan when you're talking to investors, when you're talking to fighters and sponsors. They want to be a part of something that's really going to explode. And having a foothold in Las Vegas and my background with the casinos, we kind of went through a natural evolution into Las Vegas. So convincing a fighter to come from Thailand or Europe to come to fight in Las Vegas wasn't that big of a sell. But I think a lot of it had to do with that shared belief that we need our sport to grow, and Lion Fight's the company that's going to do that.
And you mentioned, the growth and the expansion and things like that, but I can only think that there were probably some speed bumps along the way, and there were some things where, you had to change paths, or you had to kind of evolve in a way that kept Lion Fight as that premier brand. So, as you're coming up through, you're at show 66 now this coming Friday, but along the way, what did you have to do, and what are some things that, kind of helped Lion Fight evolve and stay ahead of the curve?
Well, there are lots of speed bumps. I think anybody that starts out in business is going to face that. Usually they're financially, making sure you have the resources to do everything you can do. And, a lot of times in the fight business, you're reliant on ancillary sources of revenue, ticket sales, fighter ticket sales, sponsors. And there's a lot of moving parts to put a show together. And I think that's why a lot of promotions fail, because they don't have the resources, they don't have the ability to get through those tough times. And it's been a struggle, and we've hit many speed bumps and made many mistakes, but I think we were able to weather it all. And I think with that goal, and if you're not committed to something like that, I think it'd be really easy just to say, you know what, this isn't worth the trouble. And I think that's the way a lot of promotions go. But whether it's just obstinance or arrogance or whatever it takes, it's just this, I can't let this thing go. I know in my heart this is going to be huge. So that's always what's kind of driven me. And I think a lot of the people affiliated with us.
And speaking of the people affiliated with you, Alex, my business partner, and I both, we actually met in minor league baseball. So we worked on the production side for minor league baseball. And that's always, a very lean team. And you have people that have, 1,000 different hats on, and they're doing a million things on game nights and things like that. Fight promotions kind of seem the same way to me, where you have to build a very diverse, dynamic team for people that can, fill in for someone if they're not available at the time, or that can do 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different things on fight night. So it seems like you also have, over time, put that team together that is able to support you in your vision of building this brand.
Yeah, I think you have to be the team leader. You got to be the quarterback. But, Kerry Hartney did a great job. And right now, Scott Zer, who's done an amazing job as our matchmaker, he's the guy behind the curtain. He's the guy doing a lot of the logistics stuff. He's putting a lot of this stuff together, spending a lot of time. And he's become very good at it. So, I have a lot of respect for him and a lot of trust in him, because, everybody is kind of has to buy into your vision of this thing, and everybody's got to kind of bring their own background and their own experiences to that. So I think we're hitting on all cylinders now. We're really excited about this post-COVID era, our new partner with UFC Fight Pass being able to be streamed live internationally. I think this is one of those phases in a company's growth where you can look back and say, wow, this is where it really started to trend up.
Sure. And the first time that I heard about Lion Fight, I would watch with my kickboxing coach and a couple of our training partners. We would watch on Access TV. Then it went to CBS Sports, like we had talked about a little bit earlier. And now, like you mentioned, it has, you're on UFC Fight Pass, which I can only imagine opens you up to a whole world of viewers that you just did not have the ability to broadcast to in the past.
Yeah, Access TV provided a platform for us, which hadn't really been presented on a consistent basis to Muay Thai. So Andrew Simon, I give him credit for that. He took a chance and brought us on, and I think we had great ratings with the network. Everybody loved it. We really enjoyed working with that group. And then with CBS Sports, it's one of the iconic brands in linear TV. Being affiliated to them was a great feather in our cap. But those fights were only broadcast in North America. So we would bring all of these international fighters, and none of them would get that exposure, or their fans couldn't see the telecast. And as things work, it's all about timing. Mm-hmm. And when we had talked to the UFC Fight Pass and Stephen Tecci and Crowley Sullivan and their vision for what they wanted UFC Fight Pass to become, it really meshed perfectly with what we envisioned a broadcast partner to be with, giving us our time, giving us our space in a very crowded MMA media world. That let's carve out some space here for Lion Fight. They love Muay Thai. Let's give the fans an opportunity to see some world-class Muay Thai on a regular basis. And I think this is a way that both of our brands can really help each other out.
I have to think, as one of those international fighters, for their friends, their family, their training partners, to be able to say, I'm fighting on UFC Fight Pass, has to be, it could be life-changing for them.
It's huge. It's huge exposure. We got that same sensation when we would travel overseas with Lion Fight, because everybody had heard about Lion Fight, and a lot of these promotions just wanted the opportunity to co-promote an event with Lion Fight to get that exposure. But now with Fight Pass, it's been a whole nother level of excitement. and the fact that it's streamed live around the world. So all of our fans in Australia, all of our fans in Argentina are able to see these live broadcasts. It really sends a message that we're on the international stage for good, and that the long-term growth of Muay Thai under the tutelage of Lion Fight looks very promising.
And speaking of long-term growth, I know you mentioned how you and Lion Fight were really on the same, or I mean, you and UFC Fight Pass were really on the same page when you sat down and you met with them. So what can fans expect from Lion Fight with this UFC Fight Pass partnership moving forward into the future?
Well, their commitment to being the biggest combat sports platform in the world and having the UFC chops behind it, um, is very appealing for anybody, whether it's original programming, whether it's ways to look at a diverse combat sports profile that they're going to be. Many nights they're going to have two or three fights in two or three different promotions on one night. So, you know, piggybacking off of the success of some of the other promotions, giving an opportunity to see something a little bit different. I think that's something that is going to resonate for all of us, not just from a broadcast and a brand growth standpoint, but I think when you start talking about sponsors and these other levels of growth within entertainment itself, I think that's one of the huge benefits that this partnership is going to bring for Lion Fight.
Sure. I mean, just thinking, out loud, there's, a ton of people who are Cowboy Cerrone fans, right? And they see him with that high guard and he comes out and he has, that Muay Thai background. They might hear Joe Rogan mention it. They may never have watched Muay Thai in their lives, but now they have the opportunity to sit down and watch live Muay Thai on Fight Pass. So just that alone, I'm guessing that there will be more Muay Thai fans and then consequently Lion Fight fans just because of the ability to say, hey, I like the way that Cowboy fights and is striking. Let's watch all Muay Thai.
Yeah, and you see a lot of fighters that they introduce as Muay Thai fighters that, quite frankly, I'd never heard of. So I'm sure they've had some Muay Thai exposure at some level, but I think you're starting to see the bigger promotion kind of looking at people to kind of being drawn toward that as an alternate. Cowboy Cerrone's, is a great example. And I think not only that, but the style of the fighting itself. If you're not an MMA or say a jiu-jitsu purist or a wrestler, and you like the stand-up fighting, a lot of casual fans get, disillusioned or bored with it and start booing. You don't hear that at Lion Fight because it's all stand-up fighting. And the difference between kickboxing and Muay Thai, obviously, is the use of the elbows and the fighting in the clinch. So we've taken all of the elements that I think appeal to MMA fighter fans and coupled that with a lot of these guys, this is their only discipline. They're not interested in takedowns and wrestling. So all of their time is spent training in Muay Thai. So you'll see much more proficient Muay Thai. And that's why we're able to bring in, the top guys in the world. And it really gives them an opportunity to showcase their skills.
And with the way that your rounds are set up, and the referees in Muay Thai, it seems like there is really no lapse in action. That it's from the first bell to the last bell, it is full go.
Yeah, even the referees fight, and if they're in a clinch and they're not progressing, if the fighters aren't increasing their position, they'll break them and fight them again. It's 5 3-minute rounds with a minute in between. On Fight Pass, there aren't the commercials that you get on a lot of other broadcasts, so you get just pure fighting. And once that fighter steps out of the ring, we got the next one coming in. So it's action packed. It's really intense. And I think as people see it as an alternative or a way to complement their combat sports experience, I think it's really going to raise the profile of Lion Fight and Muay Thai.
Sure. And speaking of raising the profile of Lion Fight, I know that this upcoming show on Friday is here in the U.S., but you have a few international shows now that you have planned. Is that correct?
Yeah, we've done shows in 7 countries now. So at the end of July, we're going to be back in Sicily. We did a Road to Lion Fight there in the past. We're going to be in Scotland in August, and we've got 3 or 4 other international shows that we're probably going to announce within the next 30 to 45 days. And we're going to be doing some more American shows. So it's really coming out of the COVID nightmare that affected everybody. You know, we've done a show in Wyoming, we've done a few in Kansas. It allowed us to keep the momentum going, to kind of brand ourselves with Fight Pass, work through production issues, all of the technical things. So now we're just raring to go. And I think what you're going to see in the future is we have a 10 fight contract, a minimum of 10 fights this year with Fight Pass. My guess in my initial discussions with Fight Pass is you're going to see more of Lion Fight even in 2022.
And is Muay Thai kind of in the same world as MMA right now, where you just have fighters constantly like, "Hey, I'm ready. Hey, I'm ready. I'll fight. I'll fight. I'll fight."
Every day on every social media platform, my email, I think my cell phone was even on the website. I don't know if it still is, but I would get fighters from countries that I've never even heard of before. And I think that says a lot about the exposure that we've had through social media, through previous fighters' experience, that people want to fight for you and they recognize that it is the biggest brand out there. So it's flattering. I just forward everything to Scott Zur, and I let him sort through it.
And speaking of being that biggest brand, somebody's listening to this, watching this, and never watched Muay Thai before. What's that one reason that you'd give them to say tune in on Friday night and watch Lion Fight 66?
Well, I can preach as a promoter until I'm blue in the face, but all I would say is, take a look at it, see if it's something that appeals to you. Pat Miletich did all of our shows on Access TV with Michael Schiavello, and he's a UFC Hall of Famer, and he said, I'd rather watch Lion Fight than MMA. And you have a choice now. You have an option. I love MMA. I'm a huge supporter of it, but I think we've carved out a really nice place in the combat sports industry with Lion Fight, creating the biggest brand in the sport. And let the fans decide if it's something they like. And if it's something for you, then we'd love to have you on board.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to the show this weekend. Scott, thanks a lot for your time. Enjoy it while you're out there, and we'll see you on the other side.
I appreciate it. Thanks a lot, John.
All right. Thank you.